Hey, truth be told, it's Captain Ron here with Tony Sweet, and also we are very honored to have Mr. Richard Dolan, kind enough to spare a few minutes. He's super busy, obviously, at these conferences. Mr. Dolan, welcome to our show, and why don't we talk a little bit about UFOs? You're one of the kings of the UFO thing, and this is a UFO conference, of course. What's been going on? What's the latest and greatest in the UFO world?
First, thanks for having me on. It's actually really nice, and we're at Contact in the Desert for the first time inside. It's kind of nice.
We're actually dry now.
I'm enjoying the air conditioning for a change. Golly, I never know. This is a field that's really has always got some kind of issue percolating and bubbling up. So for the last 6 months, a lot of the talk's been about mainstream revelations about the reality of the Pentagon-funded UFO program. I think that's definitely interesting. And the ATIP program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which now has arguably gone under another name, or has it gone under another name? We're not really sure. Is it still continuing? Is it not continuing? What's the nature of the actual object that was released on video, the so-called Tic Tac UFO? There's the gimbal UFO. There's the Go Fast video.
Could be a balloon, probably, maybe.
Well, I think the most interesting upshot of those sightings is the Tic Tac one, which we're told, and I think is the one that dates from November 2004. That's the Commander David Fravor encounter off the coast of California. And I have to say, I think that's a really significant case, and it's interesting that it has now received mainstream attention. And one of the interesting takeaways from that is we're talking 2004. This is not ancient history. Okay, it's over a decade ago, but it's not ancient times. And what actually happened is that our top jet Navy interceptors, the F-18A Super Hornet, these are amazing aircraft, were vectored in to investigate and possibly intercept an unknown target that had been tracked for weeks off the coast of California. The USS Nimitz and the USS Princeton were in the area. They sent Fravor and other pilots out there. So Fravor sees it. He goes, circles around, as he said many times, goes down. The object comes up. He sees the object toward him and then shoots off. Best estimate that I can imagine of the speed it took off of is in many, many multiple thousands of miles per hour. But even more significant than that, and this is actually mentioned by Luis Elizondo on the To the Stars website, that object, that thing was at the pilots were told to go to a rendezvous point. They call it the cap point. The object wasn't there yet, but it was there ahead of them, waiting for them. And the implication seems to be that this was able to break through the highly encrypted Navy communications, which change their codes every 15 minutes.
Wow.
So to be able to do that, it's actually a really serious national defense issue. You think about that an object of incredible capability can break through U.S. encrypted communications with total ease. How is that done? Well, we don't know that, but we don't know the answer to that. So I think that's one interesting takeaway from that whole encounter, and the implications are vast. You don't hear any of these implications being discussed in the mainstream media, even though they covered the case. But my take on this is that they covered the case and then just walked away from it. I'm not really seeing a serious investigation by...
What about the To the Stars, though? You brought that up. What do you think that's some deep state thing, or do you think it's legit? Do you think they're on our side?
I just walked out of the lecture that was given by Peter Levenda, who is the co-author with Tom DeLonge in Secret Machines, and
he was here right before I walked in there.
He's involved in To the Stars, and I'll just say that I've known Peter for many years, and I have mad respect for him. Okay. Mad respect for Peter Levenda. He's a serious researcher, and he's a good guy.
Good.
I have absolute confidence in his integrity. Not even for a moment would I waver on that.
Well, that's good.
So that's Peter. So his point is, he says, look, this is a legitimate initiative. They're doing their best. Some people have, and I myself, I've wondered, why have they only released snippets of the full-length videos? And this is known. The videos that are being analyzed are only short versions of the full length. So, excuse me. So what's going on with that? And Levenda has stated, he says, look, the military is only authorizing a certain amount of this to go out because to release more, in their view, would be to release sensitive, classified information. Sources and methods of getting information not necessarily even UFO related. They just don't want to give it up. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But I'm still on the fence about a lot of this. There's a lot of folks in the UFO community research field who are very critical of To the Stars. They made a couple of serious blunders right out of the gate.
Right, that's the balloon.
Or the Mylar balloon.
Right.
You look at that and you just eye roll your way through, like, how did they do that? That was picked up right away by some researchers, not by me. I'm happy to say that, but Isaac Coy, who I've known about his work for a long time, he was on it immediately, and there were others, I believe. So how did they make that mistake? And I've looked into this, and I think I don't think this was disinformation. I actually believe it was just amateur town Bush League mistake, where they took.
Well, for such a credible organization, they're trying to be so.
The thing is, I agree with you. So, but you're talking about experienced Washington bureaucrats and officials. It's true, but yeah, you don't really know how internet savvy some of these people are, and I'm just saying that. Famously, I remember George Bush Sr. didn't know how to use an ATM machine. Yeah. So a lot of these people, I think some of their tech skills are sure. lacking. And in the case of the Mylar balloon, I looked into this myself, and it's very clear. That image came from an article written by one of Fravor's fighter pilot colleagues. In 2015, before all of this came out, his encounter was known to a select circle of people, including his friend, a fighter pilot named Paco Cherio, who has a website called FighterSweep.com. You can go look at the article there, and he describes his friend's UFO encounter in great detail, and by the way, does a good job of describing it. But to dress up the article, he included a lot of stock footage of UFO types of imagery, including that balloon.
So innocently.
I think innocently.
Yeah,
and
right.
so then the To the Stars people, Semivan and the others, take that image and display it in talking about that Navy UFO, and that was, come on.
Oh,
I mean,
so bad.
but it was an egregious mistake. But I'm not of the opinion, at least at this time, that it was willful disinformation. I don't know. I think it's very possibly just
that's a big problem
huge
Tony and I
gaffe.
have, is the disinformation. How do you separate? And I was just mentioning earlier how you're so good about dates and names and everything. How do we separate what's disinformation, what's real, what's hoax? It's hard to sift through all
It is hard. This is a hard subject.
Yeah.
It's intrinsically hard. We're dealing with a phenomenon that is a real challenge to us. On top of that, we deal with secrecy, because it is the UFO subject, just as I explained in that Navy encounter from '04, it has powerful national security implications, and it's not surprising that the military and the intelligence community would feel a strong need to contain important information about this. So those of us on the outside who want to learn more have got to deal with that. So how do you deal with it, with disinformation? I think the only way is by being careful, cautious, not jumping to conclusions out of the gate, and by looking carefully at source material.
Like not making mistakes, like putting up pictures of balloons, for example.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But in terms of analyzing motives and analyzing UFO cases themselves, step one is you go slowly. And we're in a society where we've got hundreds of radio shows on UFOs and lots of hosts out there. I have a radio show on UFOs. So there's all this pressure that people have to have the strongest opinions and come to a final conclusion about things, and it breeds a kind of it's dangerous because it often leads us to premature conclusions. And
there's not a hard answer here either.
No, and then there's always rumors hitting your Facebook page, and you just want to repeat those. And
well, it's also hard to repeat something that you're not for sure, and then it comes back and bites you in the face.
Right.
Because then it discredits you.
That's right, and it's not hard to make mistakes. Right. I mean, the thing is, when I get new information about UFO, any kind of claims or whatever, I try my best to research it. So that means if there's a UFO image, I like to do reverse image searches. And that's not hard to do. Since 2011, Google's given you the ability to search JPEGs, and that's really valuable, and we need to do that more so that you find what are the sources of that particular image. And the same thing with claims. You can do search by date. of various types of claims. I wrote about this in one of my books, UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. I had a little mini chapter on how not to be a tool, how not to get hosed by the latest
Tony,
rumor
you didn't
that
read
comes
that
your
chapter,
way.
did you?
Apparently not.
Right.
So it's just a matter, and there's no sure shot way to do it, but you want to be careful. And remember that, you know, I think the biggest problem in this field today isn't what's going on with To the Stars. I think the biggest problem in this field today are unverifiable claims by alleged whistleblowers about programs that basically sound like they're a script from, you know, a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
So that's a problem because it is literally impossible to verify any of these claims. They are what a philosopher would call unfalsifiable. That is, you can't prove it true and you can't prove it false because they don't admit of that. And maybe they are true, right? But they're not. You can't prove it one way or the other. So
Right.
philosophically, scientifically, it would be considered invalid. And it's hard because, you know, you've got some of these individuals coming forth now, and they become very, very popular. And people love to want to believe them. They want the message to be true. Because a lot of these stories are filtered in with the very new age types of messages as well, which appeals to a large population here that's interested in this. So the ideology is on board. They love to hear the messages about higher densities and ascension, and but nothing is provable. Like nothing. I mean, my attitude is this: if you want to be a whistleblower, and you can't prove every aspect of what you did, okay, I get that. We understand. Maybe it's difficult. But if you can't prove this first thing about yourself, your background, your education, your family, then you're really going to have a hard time convincing the rest of us that you've actually got something that's worth listening
You got to
to.
feel like you're on a treadmill with these cases. You'll case after case, and then you have to dig through all. It's got to be just frustrating.
I enjoy what I do.
Do you?
I honestly, there are times when I don't, but most of the time I would say that I do. I feel very lucky. Look, we're studying arguably the most fascinating subject that you can imagine, and we get to do it. All of us, we're involved in looking into it. So, you know, it sure beats a 9-to-5 day job.
No
right?
doubt.
So
I mean, it's in the Bible. It's in pretty much every scripture you found all over the world. So, I mean, this is the topic that's been around for millennia.
Well, you mentioned really what we might call the ancient astronaut, ancient alien theory, and I'm interested in some of that too. I think I'm not expert by any means in arguing that we definitely have had visitation forever, but it wouldn't surprise me, and it would make sense. There are some ancient elements of our civilization that I think are intriguing, and that could very well be. You know, I feel like from my work, it's best for me to focus on the things that I can confidently argue. I can confidently state the following: there is a phenomenon that is not being explained. There are released, declassified documents. The best of them don't hint or suggest. They prove that the U.S. military and other militaries have encountered a phenomenon that's not supposed to exist, that has objects described as disc-shaped, with incredible maneuverability, hovering over sensitive bases like nuclear installations and more, that are evasive when sighted and have incredible capabilities. Like, that's confirmable. So, you know, that doesn't prove that they're extraterrestrial, but it does prove that the U.S. government and other governments have lied about it. And they tell the public at the same time there's nothing to it. So that's interesting. So you have a discrepancy there. And I think any engaging mind should inquire, well, what's behind that discrepancy? Why are they lying? Is it interplanetary extraterrestrial? And that's a fair thing to ask, by the way. You know, we're this close to having super advanced nanotech, advanced artificial intelligence. CRISPR technology is now going to be off the charts soon. Quantum computing, molecular computing. I've just been learning about this. We are reinventing ourselves as a civilization. How far are we from being able to easily go to another world? Maybe with avatars, who knows? But it's not that outrageous to think about this. And so then when you think of UFOs, that almost seems mundane by comparison.
I know.
So I think it's not outrageous to think that this is an extraterrestrial phenomenon.
Where are you on MJ-12? You were talking about those documents for...
Yeah. Well, you've got the original MJ-12 documents that were released in the 1980s. That's only a few pages, 7 pages. And then you've got a stack that would be about this thick of documents released during the 1990s. That includes the so-called Psalm 101, the Special Operations Manual 101, which is an UFO retrieval manual. And you read that. You see the fingers of the guy who, photocopied it. And there's a lot of other these Majestic Documents. They're on the website of Bob and Ryan Wood. Go to majesticdocuments.com. I read through all of them chronologically, and I feel that if these are a hoax, they're not a hoax of one person, like not even close. They would be hoaxed by a team of PhD intelligence community professionals of a high level.
Not the kind of people that would be doing a hoax necessarily.
No. They could be the kind of people to do a hoax, but they would be skilled in every branch of biological science, propulsion technology, document creation of that era. Like, they would be absolutely top notch. And I asked myself, and I spoke to one very brilliant, high-level guy with a lot of intelligence community background. I said, well, if this were hoaxed, who's the target? Me? UFO researcher? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
Like, why would you do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And he says, no. He said, well, conceivably, and he says, I'm not saying this is the case, but conceivably it could be done to go against the Russians. And I said, well, why? He said, well, let's say the Russians are working on their own advanced technology. They might glean incorrect information that would be planted in these documents that would lead them astray. And I said, well, all right, that's fine if that's the case, but that would still validate the UFO subject, because clearly they're not stupid,
right,
and they're not going to find it credible if they know UFOs are not true. So my conclusion is even those documents give a kind of indication. Like, if they are disinformation is not the same thing as a lie. It's not.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to have disinformation,
Right.
you're misdirecting people. You have to have true information in there, put in such a way that either the truth is not believable or that the target believes certain lies that you insert in there. That's disinfo. And so if the MJ-12 documents, the Majestic Documents, are disinfo, that doesn't invalidate the extraterrestrial hypothesis. In fact, it might support it.
Interesting. We're going to let you go here, but Tony wanted to mention we want to ask you about, what do you think about disclosure? You think that that's something that's sort of...
Well, a couple of things. I would say, we live in a world where there is intense and expensive secrecy about UFOs. Like, this is not free. It's expensive to maintain secrecy. It's expensive to study and attempt to replicate the technology that undoubtedly they have. So it's part of the siphoning of money out of our world, out of our economy. That's one thing. So disclosure on that basis, that's a great idea. Like, we want to end the secrecy. We need to end the secrecy. The only thing I would say is, I have every year since I've been in this field, and since '01 basically, I have just never felt that disclosure is coming. So I've had a 16-year debate with my friend Stephen Bassett, who believes every year that it's happening.
Every year
it's not happening.
Tell him the same thing.
So it's like Dolan 16, Bassett 0 for the moment.
Right.
And I hope that I lose that, actually, because I would like for Stephen to be correct. But I just have never believed it. But I do believe it will happen. I think it's an inevitability.
You do?
Well, at some point. But I think that those people
in
have
our
this...
lifetime.
I think probably, yeah.
Really?
And I'd say that because, look, it's not that it'll be voluntary. It'll never be voluntary. You'll have to pry disclosure out of the cold, dead fingers of those people who've got the secret. They're never going to give it up voluntarily, ever.
Okay.
But the thing is, they're not the only game in town. All right, there's us, this civilization, where, look at us, we're doing this. This is going out on the web, and I mean, this wouldn't have been possible 10, 20 years ago.
True.
So we have ways of communicating with each other that are new, and what will we be able to do and share in another 10 years? Like, we're reinventing ourselves as a civilization all the time. So we're not static. There's organizations like WikiLeaks and other types of groups that are digitally raiding stores of information and throwing it out there.
But then they discredit it, and they just like the MJ-12 stuff. It's it'll get discredited.
Maybe.
And torn apart.
Maybe not. We don't have the crystal ball, and we don't know what the future is going to bring. I think just because there's been failure in the past doesn't mean it's going to be failure forever in the future. We're in a state of flux. All I'm saying is, in a state of flux, things can happen. And now it doesn't have to. there could be no genuine disclosure, or there could be fake disclosure, or there could be a tiny little bit, and you could pretend to give up a secret. You know, you could keep your secret by pretending to share it, basically, is that old rule. So that's a total possibility. But I think the other thing I would just say is I would warn people against believing that disclosure is going to bring some utopian, perfect society that will fix every problem. I think utopians are dangerous people. I think utopias are a fantasy land. And so human beings, you know, the way we are, I think it's very, very foolish to think that we're going to solve every single problem in our society. The end of UFO secrecy will be an important milestone, but it's not going to be the end of the struggles of our species.
No.
And those people who think so I think they're deluding themselves.
I mean, it's like finding a cure for polio and cancers. I mean, just because that's gone, that doesn't mean there's another problem, another disease.
No, exactly. People who think that disclosure will bring out free energy, maybe it will. But free energy is still not going to solve all of our problems. Oil was once free energy.
All right.
Compared with coal and wood,
right.
It was awesome, and it was portable, and had a lot of BTUs, and you could do a lot. Well, that didn't solve it made life more convenient in a lot of ways for our society, absolutely. But it didn't solve certain other problems. So there's no magic bullet.